there's a legal requirement here under the Local Government and Elections Act, the Future Generations, and also the Equality Act. So we have to complete and produce a plan. This plan does build on the annual report that was presented to full council in February. So that's our normal process. In line with the budget, we will bring a plan before council for council to consider, and council did approve in February. But what we've done is we've undertaken some refinements since then, including new actions and performance measures. And you'll remember with the recent Estlin inspection report, one of the areas that was picked up was around the corporate strategic quality plan and about the line of sight from the corporate plan to the integrated business plan and the service and that clarity. So the refinements really focus on addressing the Estin point, but actually we've taken the opportunity to strengthen it across the organisation, and also picking up on previous scrutiny recommendations, if I remember rightly, in respect of having clear key performance indicators with targets, and also being clear around which service is responsible for what, and also which portfolio holder. So the plan does continue to focus on the three wellbeing objectives. Those haven't changed from the Cabinet. The first one around improving awareness and access to services. The second around supporting sustainable employment and fair pay. And then the third around tackling poverty and inequality. And to improve the usability and transparency of the plan, it has been reformatted and strengthened. We've looked at what other local authorities provide and the format in which they provide. So we've taken some learning from others here. The wellbeing objectives, actions and measures now appear at the front of the plan, and all services are contributed to the plan. And as I mentioned, the education element in particular is under Objective 3. And then support and information has been consolidated into a dedicated section at the end. Having discussed the draft plan with services, they feel this is clearer line of sight, provides clarity, and will allow us to have the golden thread that we refer to in from the corporate plan through to integrated business plans and ultimately appraisals, team plans, etc. So it's important to note that this plan isn't a standalone document. Each service has its own integrated business plan, as I've referred to a couple of times already, which aligns to these corporate objectives. So it gives the next level of detail, the next set of actions that are required to be undertaken, and which officer and by when. So each time we delve into the next tier, it gives more and more information. So we'll have greater assurance in terms of delivery. Then in respect of monitoring the plan, our standard processes are in place, whereby we have quarterly reporting through to Cabinet, and also scrutiny plays a role twice a year in respect of our performance and holding the executive to account. Chair, is that okay in terms of a summary? Is there anything else that you'd like me to cover before opening up to scrutiny?
I think that's absolutely fine, Chief Executive. I certainly answered some of my questions and given a better explanation to some of the things going along. So yeah, I think that's great. Right, members, we need a bit of structure to this today, and I'm suggesting I'm going to come to questions now straight away on the Chief Executive's opening, and then I ask you to consider. It's a large document, to consider some other questions in relation to the beginning of that document. When that has been exhausted, I'm going to go straight to the objectives and work through the objectives 1, 2, and 3, and then perhaps dedicate 20 minutes to each objective. So I'm going to come straight to questions now. So bearing in mind, if you can hold questions on objectives, that'd be great. But we've been given the strategic vision, the reasoning, etc., etc. So I'm going to give you some opportunity to ask questions there, and then I'm going to go directly to the objectives. So unless anybody speaks up, that's the approach I'm going to take, just so that we have a bit of structure to the meeting. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, and thanks, Chief Exec, for the opening there. Just wanted to clarify one thing there, if I may. You talked about us needing and having to do this plan. So when I look at some of the measures there, are those measures also set down? That's things we have to measure against, or is that things we've determined ourselves to be the measure? So I guess I was looking at the looking at one of the first ones about skilled phone calls, because that must take a lot of time to work out what is a skilled phone call, as well as actually recording a skilled phone call, for example. So I just wanted to clarify that if I could.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fine, Peter. Just before we go any further and we get people to answer, please let's not labour the chief executive too much. If there's other officers that wish to make comment or can answer questions, please speak up. Jump the queue of questions, and just speak up and come in, please. Gareth has got his hand up. Gareth Hall.
Chair, but if I may, shall I just answer?
Yeah, go on.
Shall
Just
I?
speak up, Emma.
Is
That's
that
all right.
okay? Shall I just not in terms of the skills call that will come to other colleagues on the call for that, either the director of corporate uh, services or head of digital. But in terms of whether they're national or local, the objectives that are included in this plan, the actions and the measures are all determined in Powys. So they're the elements that we identify as being important in Powys. Just to answer Councillor Peters' question there.
Clear on that, Peter?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Just to ask a slight supplementary. When you say we determine those to be the measures, could you just clarify who the we are, please?
So the Cabinet will set out their aspirations early dawns when they set out the Progressive Partnership Agreement, and they set out their priorities during that time. Then we went through a process across the organisation where there were a number of working groups where various members from different political groups contributed to the original development of the corporate plan. It then goes through a process whereby, as officers, we support in terms of its development. And then in terms of governance, it comes through to Cabinet scrutiny, but ultimately full council then for sign off.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Gareth Hall, you've got a hand up. Not sure. Please introduce yourself and please come in.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Sorry, my video isn't working, so I'm on sound only. And I'm a lay member of this Audit and Scrutiny Committee, and
Okay.
co-opted to the Finance Panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And like you, Chair, I was enlightened by the Chief Executive's introduction and also answered a lot of my questions. And I think it would be very helpful if this document had something explicit up front, almost a diagram to show that golden thread that the Chief Executive referred to, from the high-level corporate objectives, which are aspirational, threading through to each service area's individual integrated business plans, where there'll be specific actions to deliver against these objectives, and they'll use the KPIs to measure their performance. So if we had that, this would be very helpful as a standalone document to see where it fits in, particularly also where it fits in with the overall sustainable powers and how it contributes to that.
Okay, just an overview there. That may be something which we may consider as a recommendation afterwards, or is there any officer who wishes to make a comment on that? I think it's a sensible suggestion, Gareth, just to give a better understanding, yeah?
Yeah.
I can come back in there. We've got a diagram actually that does set out the golden thread, sets out from national, national, regional, strategic, local, right the way down to individual. So the golden thread diagram is not an issue to include at all, if that was a recommendation that came from scrutiny.
Thank you, Chief Executive. While you're there, I've just thought of Councillor Peters' comment, and you explained in relation to the reporting back to Cabinet and scrutiny. The other important group of people is the public. How do we report? How do we report the recommendation? Not the recommendations, the plan to the public in a timely way.
So the element in terms of public is through public meetings. So the public can ask a question at any time in terms of participation. They can view today. They can also do so at Cabinet Council. But actually then in terms of our reporting, we make sure that we report publicly into the public domain on a quarterly basis against the corporate plan. So we'll then take the measures and the key actions that we've done with the narrative to explain what we've done going forward.
Thank you very much. Gareth, please. Gareth Jones, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Do you want to take Ellen first? Because she's, as an officer, she's had her hand up for a while. I
Yeah,
think
go on.
she's going to answer a previous question.
Come on then, Ellen, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Gareth, too, as well. Yeah, just referring back to the skilled calls. So skilled calls are different to the calls that we have through the contact centre. Skilled calls refers to inquiries that require our staff to perform those additional tasks or provide the specialist services, which increases the handling time then. This includes things like highways, lost dogs, I'm trying to think off the top of my head now, noise complaints, blue badges, care line, kind of garden waste, all these kind of services. And staff may need to send emails, and they may need to log the requests. There's various systems that they need to log those requests through as well. And then they need to carry out those follow-up actions as well as part of that process. So that's where there's a difference in time between a skilled calls percentage target compared to those with the corporate, and we do kind of monitor that, so we are able to collate that information.
Thank you for that clarification, Ellen. Good. Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just make a plea? And as you all know, I'm into KPIs and numbers, etc. But this is a really difficult document to try and get an understanding of, because there's no current or previous performance indicators in the report. And personally, I'd like to have the latest figures available so that you can actually do that comparison and do that judgment over time. The other aspect of this, if you go to page 27, there's a statement which is a lead and deputy leader joint introduction. There's a statement there saying that the funding gap is 60 million. But on the MTFP that was approved by full council on the 27th of February, in Appendix B of that document, the funding gap for by the end of 29/30 on those assumptions is shown as 39.1 million. And I just think the two figures need to be the same for consistency. Should have picked it up when the paper came to drafting full council, but I missed that one.
Okay, we're speaking about evidence really, and then you've asked a specific point as well there, Gareth. Yeah, so Jane's got a hand up.
Yeah, we can amend that. I think we will see the gap change quite often now as we move through the years and we develop our 5-year plans. But absolutely, it should reflect what was approved by council back in February, sorry. So we will amend that sentence to be that latest figure.
Thanks, Jane. Good spot, Gareth. Any comment on KPIs and evidence and up-to-date information to see if the plan is working? Emma's nodding her head.
Yeah, I can do that, Chair. So I actually think it's a sensible suggestion, and there's no harm in putting an extra column in where we've got the baseline. Some of the measures will be new, so we wouldn't have that baseline, which we just need to explain that. But in terms of baseline, not a problem for those that we've already collated to include. I think what's happened from our perspective, because we report separately, that on a quarterly basis, we've done it through that avenue and through self-assessment. But taking on board Councillor Gareth's point, I don't see an issue.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Adrian.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I may be getting this completely wrong, but I can't read any direct mention of the farm estate in the plan. Is that not relevant, or is this treated as an asset, or what? But it does feed into the fairer, greener Powys aspect, what it delivers. Should it be mentioned, or have I got the wrong end of the stick? Thank you.
That's a good question, Adrian. Matt's got his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It is covered as part of the overall assets.
Yes,
so,
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, but yeah, point taken. But yeah, at the moment it's covered within the wider assets, because obviously we've got a wider state. So, but yeah, take your point.
Thank you.
And I guess that's a relevant comment for other aspects of the authority as well. It's just do we pick up on them and include them all, isn't it? So there will be items that we miss, that aren't specified in this document. So yeah, I understand what you're saying there, Matt. This is covered. I haven't got any further questions. Seems to have covered our introduction. I will move to the options. I've got a question myself. How does the plan align with the Welsh Government priorities and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act? It says it does, but where do we identify and say, well, this meets the 7 wellbeing goals here? I'm not really sure myself how you identify that to say it's meeting the plan, but as far as I can see, it's just words saying we meet the wellbeing goals, etc., etc. How do we evidence that individual lines are actually contributing to them 7 wellbeing goals? Is that a fair question?
I think it's a fair question. We do try and line in the detailed proposals how we link with the wellbeing goals, and I think in terms of checking them, we do that through the impact assessments, but also each year Audit Wales will undertake audits across certain subject matters, and each year there's normally about 2 audits that will do like a deep dive to check specifically about how we're contributing to those and also the sustainable development principles.
I'm interested and I'm fascinated by Copilot. So I put the document into Copilot and I said, how does this meet with the 7 wellbeing goals? And it does frequently. But if you detailed every one of them, the document then becomes so laborious and everything. So the details there, but I just think, how do we demonstrate that that's it?
It's a good question, but I think that in doing so, that's where we through the year we will take a specific element and then test it rather than testing the whole document. Because, like you said, Chair, the document just becomes too unwieldy. I mean, it's long anyway, isn't it? And
Yeah.
then to stretch it out by goodness knows how many further pages, we start being challenged around how useful the document is then.
Okay, thank you very much. I haven't got any further questions at this stage, and I really don't want to miss any questions. But as I said, I'm going to take us to objective 1 now, which is page 35. If you think this is the wrong approach, please speak up. But I think it gives us an opportunity, and I'm going to say we need to be finishing questions on objective 1 by 2:45. So that gives us 20 minutes. Yeah. As I said, speak up if you think this is the wrong approach. Do we wish to have an introduction to objective 1, or do you want to go straight into questions?
Introduction,
You're very silent now. Do you want a quick introduction on objective 1? Yes. There's a couple. Chief Executive, I don't know if you could just. I know pressure's on. Maybe I should have notified you before, or any other officer. But it's yeah. Go on.
It's fine. So objective 1 was set out in the initial plan around we will improve people's awareness of services and how to access them so they can make informed choices. And on page 35, as the chair has indicated, that's where that element starts. And you'll see a number of bullet points that set out the priorities that have been identified. So around running that open and democratic council, ensuring that people have power to understand what services the council provides and how to access them, around monitoring those communications, around enabling people and families to access information and advice to help themselves. In terms of, we use a term of self-serve, but to self-help, access existing opportunities within the communities. A new element here that's really important is about promoting independence. And also we've got the element here around language and people engaging with us in their language of choice with a specific focus actually on the Welsh language. And so what we've got to do is test ourselves then in terms of the we will sections that start on page 36 are the actions that we're setting out to undertake as an organisation. You'll see who the lead member is, and you'll also see the lead service directorate. So they'll take a lead in fulfilling the action, and then underneath you'll see the associated measures. So the intention here is we're really clear about the overarching objective. We're then clear around the priorities within it. We've got a number of actions that we say we're going to do that should help us fulfill the objective and those priorities, and then the measures will tell us around whether we're achieving those elements or not. Is that sufficient, Chair?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. That's great. That gives us a starting point. I'm open for questions, members. There's 14 pages of objective one, so undoubtedly there's going to be some questions. So, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, sorry to monopolise, Chair.
No, it's one of your 27.
No, I've gone through now and just picked out 3 or 4 for objective one, and I raise them all at the same time. On page 37, there's a measure there about reception calls where it says a lower number is better. Surely that needs to be a higher number is better, because it's around the number of calls answered on time. On page 41, there's a measure there around visits to Freedom Leisure. I'm just wondering, does that include schools or does it exclude schools? On page 42, there's a measure around money advice, and the targets for 26-27 appear to drop off the planet. I've lost it now. Number of people supported through the money advice service, higher number is better. For 25-26 is 950. For the next 2 years is 200. Obviously, there's an error there in my mind, and I'll leave it at that. And if there's no other questions, I may come back.
Thank you. I think that's 4 questions then, and you spoke very quick, so I've only got 3 of them. But
no, there's only 3 questions, Chair.
3 questions, okay. Who's jumping in there, please? I think you're right in relation to the lower number. That just needs correcting, doesn't it? Nina, your microphone.
Sorry, apologies. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Nina Davis, the Director of Social Services and Wellbeing. Councillor Jones, you picked up a question about whether the Freedom Leisure numbers include school attendance as well. Can you give me a couple of minutes in the background? I'll just double check and get you the answer in the meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I need the answer in the meeting, Nina. I just think it needs clarity within the document.
Yeah, no, okay, thank you. I'll take that.
Okay, Helen again.
Hi, sorry, can you just give me a couple of seconds as well to answer that? It is one that I've gone back and forth with, yeah, I know it's kind of worded a little bit weird, but if you just give me a couple of seconds and I'll be able to answer.
Is that the one on reception calls?
The reception calls, yeah, the lower number being better. So if you just bear with me a couple of seconds and I'll pop in the chat or come back.
On the 3rd question there, Gareth, not covered.
The money advice.
Say that again. Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
It's the one around the money advice where it drops from 950 to 200.
Okay, Mary.
Which is clearly wrong.
Yeah, Mary's coming in.
I am coming in. Thank you, Chair. Mary Thomas, Deputy Head of Finance. So it reflects our current plans in terms of staffing. We expanded the team because it was grant funded. And it's being maintained at that level through use of reserves at the moment. But our longer term, we need to come up with a different solution for that team, but that reflects the current plans in terms of the staffing levels there.
Okay, so that's different solution may involve third-party providers, and perhaps that may be able to do some.
Yeah, there's a lot of work going on in that area.
Okay. Thank you.
Recently started. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you there, Councillor Liz.
Thanks, Chair. I can see there's quite a lot of work going into the public participation strategy, and I picked up that there's a plan to introduce a private tenants forum, and I just wondered if, for the benefit of the public, if there's any more information about how that's progressing. I can see obviously there won't be any targets on it this year because it's due for completion at the end of this year, but could anyone give any further information on that, on how that's going?
Okay, anybody able to step in there?
Yeah, I can if you like, Chair.
Thanks. Who's that? Matt, is it? No.
No, it's Andy.
Oh, sorry, Andy. Your face didn't come up. Yeah, here we go.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, we've been trying to work. We worked initially with Parvo to see if they would organise this, but unfortunately they weren't able to. So the plan is with the new housing team that we've got in housing quality is to start with trying to do possibly an online get-together forum and debate, because we're acutely aware that Paris is a huge place. People aren't going to drive from Machynlleth to Ostragonnice, Ostragonnice to Machynlleth, or even coming in to the centre, because people have jobs, they have lives, and what have you. But we absolutely want to get the views and experiences of private tenants, so we know exactly what their aspirations are and what their experiences are within their accommodation. You know, privately rented accommodation now accounts for nearly 20% of all homes. So, you know, has been a slight increase in the rights of private tenants, but they are still subject to, albeit with 6 months notice, no fault evictions. And you know, there's no requirement upon private landlords to meet the same housing quality standards that are required of social landlords. So the way we're going to take it forward is to publicise, try and do it as an online chat group, something of that nature. I'm sure we'll be discussing that with Ellen's team, how we do that, and then seeing how that works, because it's only as good as the people who come and join us. We want to make sure that private tenants feel able to talk as well. You know, we don't want them to feel that they can't speak out. You know, for fear of possibly any sort of recriminations from private landlords. So it's going to be quite a difficult one. In smaller areas, you know, and I say that sort of small, not small districts, you know, tightly constrained urban areas, it is easier to have the traditional format because nobody has to travel more than a few miles. You know, nowhere in Birmingham is more than 5 miles from the Bullring. But we're very different from that. Hence, we're going to have to rely upon methods of communication. But I'm looking forward to it, because we rarely, or it's rarely that private tenants get to speak out, to speak and have their voice heard. So it's long overdue. As I say, we're hoping Parvo could do it, but unfortunately they weren't able to. You know, they did do their very best, but there we go. So yeah, we will be keeping people posted. And
Thank you, Andy.
it's really good. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to develop that a little bit further. Liz has raised in relation to tenants, but community engagement obviously is an important factor in this. We spoke about tenants, but you know, there's underrepresented groups. We need them to be involved in shaping and reviewing the plan. And one of the key questions is how fair and equal access. Andy mentioned it there in relation to rural and urban areas. And the one thing which ticked my box when you were speaking then, Andy, was all our community who have digital exclusion. So there's a massive group of people here that we might not be able to engage with. So maybe there's a piece of work to be done there on community engagement, and not just with tenants. Yeah, okay. I'm just making that point. Councillor Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just had a couple of questions around measures, if I may. I was looking at measure 63, which I think is on page 46, and it includes freedom of information requests and environmental information requests, but I can't see anywhere any inclusion of subject access requests or things like whistleblowing referrals. The other question on measures was I was just wondering why we include measures which for me we can't control. So an example of that I think is the very last one, where it talks about the number of 16 and 17-year-olds on the electoral register. I accept we can influence that, and we should, but obviously we can't control that. So you know, why are we including that? And then finally, the measures talk about percentages of people in a lot of instances. So, for example, I think one of them is percentage of people visiting the libraries that are satisfied. So I just wondered what is the population for people? Is that people like visiting, say, a library and are satisfied, or is that those that are satisfied as a percentage of all our residents? Thanks, Chair.
If I may come in, Chair, on the people element, and then Clive come in on the other points, but the people element, basically we were asked to use the word people rather than individual throughout the document. That was a request from Cabinet. So it's not in if we do a rate per 1,000 or a rate per 10,000, as an example, Councillor Peter, that would be set out in the measure definition. So for every measure that's included in this plan, we will need a measure definition included within there that we can make available, so we know exactly what we're counting, and the denominators, etc. Sorry, it's a bit technical, but those definitions are not in place yet. So at the moment, the reference to people is just instead of individual.
So yeah, thanks. So sorry, might be being a bit thick, but we still need to then determine what the population is that will divide. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Clive's coming to give a bit more depth as well. You're still mic'd up, Clive. Clive's obviously struggling here now, so
how's that, Chair? Is that better
here
now?
we go. There we go.
Oh, apologies. Thank you, Councillor Peter, for the question. I'll deal with two of the matters which you raised. Firstly, with regard to 63, which is on page 46, measure 63 on page 46, and you asked what about SARS and whistleblowing? So I totally accept that SARS may be relevant to the issue of how we improve people's awareness to services and how they access them. So that's what the objective is. But in terms of whistleblowing is not part of that, and but that's the reason why we don't include that. But we'll certainly take on board the SARS issue. Insofar as the other issue you raised about making sure that pupils between 16 and 17, which are on the register, again, this is about improving people's awareness of services, and we take the view of the fact that providing being on the register of electors is a service which we need to promote, and what we're doing, and hence we put it in as a measure.
Yeah. Yeah, if I may, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Clive. Yeah, I do get that, and I think it's dead right that we should be trying to influence that, and we should encourage 16, 17-year-olds. I guess it was just my point is we can't, yeah, we can influence, but we can't control the numbers. So it's almost like we're setting ourselves up for failure, if you know what I mean.
Chair, I have to say we are actually at this moment in time undertaking part in a pilot, which will hopefully increase the number of 16 and 17 years old on the register. So we're actively doing it as we speak, Councillor Peter.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you both, and thanks for that. Just for the meeting's information, there is a chat box going as well, and it's useful because Ellen has answered Gary's question, so just be aware that the chat box is operational. Jenny, are you looking to come in on Peter's question there? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if you'd like me to answer the question
Yeah.
about the libraries.
Yeah.
So within the library service, there are continuous surveys. Actually, staff are encouraged or encourage the public to complete the surveys about the services they receive from the libraries. There is also a running survey through our website, Story Powys. People are encouraged to participate in that. And then there are regular adults and children's surveys throughout the year as well. So that's where the figures are taken from in terms of the library percentage and the number of people satisfied in the library service.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm only operating on one screen today, so it makes me a little bit slower. So, but we're getting there. I'm not seeing any other questions on objective one, which okay, Councillor Gareth, come on. Gareth, you're mic'd up as well.
Do apologise, Chair. As John foresees on the call, page 48, there's a couple of targets around potholes. And I think the one is that you're going to solve 350 potholes per year. I'm wondering, is that per ward or is that across it? I'm just wondering if John could give a bit more detail around those three measures on potholes.
Yeah, no problem, Councillor.
There we go.
Yeah, that's the number of potholes that we're currently managing across the county within the available resource that we have. So that's the baseline.
So is there is there a certain size of a road defect that becomes a pothole?
Yes, that's all prescribed within the highway asset management plan, and
Okay.
that describes what a pothole is.
Okay.
Or road defect.
Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
Matt, are you looking to come in there as well?
Yeah, just picking up on Councillor Gareth's point around the number of portals. We've set a target 350 a month. Sorry, a quarter. I don't want to set myself up to fail, but
Yeah.
no, a quarter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Clarify everything there, Gareth?
yeah, but it doesn't say 350. I put that as a cumulative figure. So perhaps, again, a little bit more narrative.
Okay.
Yep. Councillor Allard, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, and apologies, Chair. I was late. I was unable to join immediately. And it's an interesting stat, that last one. I think you can probably do spend a quarter of the year in my ward alone. But the quality of the objective one, were the actual objectives reviewed at all within this plan? There's always been an issue around this objective one. Thank you.
I can come in there in the absence of the leader and deputy leader through discussions with them. They did consider they were content to continue with the existing objectives.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Neither in the meeting today, Alid, so can't really develop that any further. Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Chair. Just on potholes again, just looking, we've got number of potholes scheduled and number of potholes monitored. Can I have a bit of information on that, what that exactly means, please? Do you monitor 125 and then schedule to repair 50 of them?
No, sorry, Chair, Councillor Danny, that's where there's a defect being identified, but depending on the classification of the road, it will depend on what intervention it goes in at. So there will be some defects that will be monitored, and when they get to a point, then they'll be repaired. They'll be scheduled in and repaired.
Okay, yep, okay, thank you.
You looking to come back in there, Chief Exec?
Yes, please.
Go on.
Not on potholes, but just it was wrong of me not to include something further in my response to Councillor Davis to confirm that the leader and deputy leader have led the updates and the refresh and the requirements around this corporate plan. I appreciate that they can't be here today, but they have been through it line by line and very clear in terms of what they were expecting in this plan. So I just felt it was important that I make that point.
I'm going to bring Councillor Ali back. I assume that's a response there, yeah?
No, thank you very much. The leader did send an email out with a link to it yesterday, the day before. It's just disappointing that once again the attendance from the cabinet is low. Quick comment on the potholes. Are those temporary fixes or permanent fixes? Because there's a gang going around my ward now just plugging. There was some done in March and they've all come out. Are those temporary or permanent fixes?
Just about going to allow that question, but I'm not sure what the relevance on the corporate plan is. So I've just allowed that because I think it's good for information.
It would be a pothole which has been reported. If it meets the criteria, it will then have been filled.
Yeah. Plugged, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm not raising this now in relation to potholes or anything, but a lot of the measures. What happens if the plan or the targets are not being met? What's the mechanism in place then to move forward? Is the plan changed or is there a contingency plan?
Should I come in there, Chair, if I've understood correctly? So can I just to make sure I've understood? So if we find that we're not delivering in line with the measures that they're, what action will we take?
Yeah,
that's the question. Yeah, okay. So
you should be asking the questions.
Sorry. So it's just to make sure that I understood it correctly. So where I referred to the performance management quality assurance framework and the quarterly reporting, the importance around that is actually so we can determine where our performance is rather than wait until the end of the plan, which takes us into the first year of a new administration. The monitoring, the ongoing monitoring should give us the opportunity then to say, well, actually, are our actions the right actions to have the impact that we need and to bring about the change required, or are we doing the wrong things? Or alternatively, is it a a capacity issue? Is it a capability issue? Is it a resourcing issue? What are the actions that we need to undertake to bring the performance back on track? It's not necessarily about rewriting the plan. It's more around, we've got the aspirations, we're clear about the way forward. These are the actions we believe we need to undertake. This is the impact that we're expecting. Are we having the impact? If not, do our actions need to change?
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you. Not going on potholes, but on the theme through potholes. When Alan was asked, took the question I was going to ask, but if we put a building block in place and we identify that and we score that, but then it fails, how do we then identify that that has failed and that doesn't go down as a completion, as it means that we've met our target? Because if we're doing something and it continually fails and we're not monitoring the failures, how do we monitor then the amount of failures we reach within reaching our target, if that makes sense?
I think I get what you're saying there. Hopefully,
Shall I put it in simple terms for the potholes? If a pothole fails 6 weeks after it's done because it's not being putting the tar around the edge of it, which is more often than not, we're marking it down as one of 350. If we turn around then and out of 350, 12 months later, 80% have failed, we've reached our target, but we haven't shown how the failure percentage, and that failure percentage will be throughout other performances as well. So it's the monitoring of when we put something in place, it's failed. How are we monitoring that and showing that within our performance report?
Okay, that's a better way of saying it. Anybody picking up on that? Nina.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Pugh. I think it's a really good question, isn't it, about the effectiveness of the actions that we're putting in place. So I can't respond in terms of potholes, obviously, but I can see that Matt's got his hand. But it's a good question about the impact, and I think maybe Councillor Pugh, we take that away and look through the measures to see whether there is anything in any way we can strengthen the measures in that. So I think it's a good challenge. Thank you.
Okay, before Matt comes in, this is the comment in relation to KPIs. That measures the progress which has been made, doesn't it? So I think this point was made very early on that we need more detail in relation to successes and etc. So that would be picked up within KPIs. Matt.
Yeah, just to pick up, Chair, the point that Councillor Pugh mentioned in terms of the potholes and patching in general, we do have a cycle of those works being re-inspected by the inspector. So if anything does come out that is defective, then it'll be scheduled for repair. But it is a good point and something that we will take back in terms of how we bring that forward into this plan then, in terms of defects that are continually arising.
Councillor Jeremy, content with that?
Yeah, going back to Nina, if you could imagine, it's very similar to direct payments, which have failed an awful lot of people. How do we show that we've got people onto it, which has set up our target, but they've actually failed in to be the right things for some of the people that we put them on? And it's an important measure to understand where we fail on them, and then we readdressed it and how we put it back out to make it a success, because that understanding is very important, I feel, going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a point well made. We seem to have exhausted the questions on objective 1. I'm going to be a couple of minutes, but it is on the time scale which I'm operating on. So if there are no others, I'm going to go to objective 2, which starts on page 49. And again, if you'd be so courteous, Chief Exec, if you just give us a brief introduction into that. And just on objective 1, there's some items in green which haven't obviously been populated. I understand baselines, etc. But when do we look to seeing this is going to cabinet? Will they be populated before they go to cabinet, or is that just ongoing work? As I was scrolling through, I noticed the green items.
We do need to try and complete as much as possible before cabinet where we can. What we're finding is, instead of counting things for the sake of counting, or things that we've always counted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
we need to challenge ourselves about counting the right things, and therefore we may not have thought those through fully yet. And so if they're incomplete, we just need to buy ourselves time. So it's a marker. We know we need to do something in this area, but we now need to do the next steps to make sure that it's meaningful. And it's some of the points that Councillor Pugh is raising there in respect of failure. You know, in social services, we're more rehearsed around repeat referrals. So if we've got a repeat referral, why are we having a repeat referral as an example? And like Matt was referred to, you know, the potholes are repeat because we've got to think about the value for money, the efficiency, the effectiveness, etc. And so we just need to hone in and develop those further. So I think it's the social value one that is highlighted in green. This is a new measure for us to consider, and so we just need to work that through, Chair.
Thank you very much. Objective 2, and I'm going to say we'll take this through to 3:15. Okay, so objective 2,
Yeah.
Melanie, please.
Okay, so objective 2 is around the support and good quality sustainable employment, providing training opportunities and pursuing the real living wage employer accreditation. So really important, not just only within the council, but also wider economic component. You can see the priority set out here around working efficiently and effectively to deliver good services, around committing to providing good local job opportunities to the people of Powys and beyond. So that's not just about the local authority itself, but wider. So our businesses that are within Powys, and that the council is a fair employer. Though we already pay our staff an apprentice a real living wage, we'll seek to become an accredited real living wage employer. So that the accreditation element is broader and is about those individuals that we contract with also providing the real living wage to their employees. And so we would need that broader participation with our businesses in respect of that. And essentially, so that helps as many people as possible meet their basic costs of living while supporting the wider economy and also helping us to deliver the reduced carbon emissions. And so therefore, Chair, the same process under the We Will, sets of actions, clearly defined who's accountable for delivery, and then a set of measures that should determine whether we're on track with meeting the respective objective and outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. And obviously, very, very relevant now in review of arrest inspection, and just bringing to your attention, members, that, you know, there are some new measures in here now to rectify some of our failings. So just be aware of them if somebody wants to ask some questions on them, please.
Chair,
Question.
if I may, sorry to cut in there. If I may, just because you mentioned education, the bulk of the education elements are under objective 3.
Yeah.
But noting what you're saying,
yeah, no, that's right.
Members' attention to that. Thank you.
Okay, looking for some questions, please. Councillor Allard.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this objective, I struggle with this objective. It's an inward-looking objective. I know it's incredibly important to have a well-trained, well-motivated workforce, but that's not the objective of a council. Council's objective is to deliver services. So again, this is an inward-looking objective. Was this objective reviewed by the leader and deputy leader?
The objective was reviewed by the leader and deputy leader, and whilst on the face of it, I can see why you think it's inward looking. Actually, the accredited living wage employer is outward looking. It's more about our businesses providing in Powys, so less about the local authority. We are already a real living wage employer. It's more then in terms of the businesses and the accreditation around that, which is incredibly complex and challenging, but shouldn't mean that we should shy away from it.
In view of that comment, Chief Executive, I'm sorry, and it will be there. Can you just tell me how we're encouraging others to follow suit with the living wage then? You spoke about
in terms of the wider accreditation.
Yeah.
That's the element through our procurement and commercial services component. But I can see Diane would like to come in, if that's okay, in terms of economic development and the work that we're doing with businesses.
That's absolutely fine. Welcome, Diane.
Good afternoon, Chair. Diane Reynolds, Director of Economic Development and Growth. And just following on from the Chief Exec's comment, obviously one way we can influence externally is through our own procurement, but also through working very clearly with our businesses. So we are working now asking people to sign up to newsletters and providing advice and guidance in terms of regular communications with our businesses and encouraging them to meet some of the wider ambition and initiatives across the council, not just in the real living wage, but other areas as well. So we are running different workshops, or will be running different workshops with businesses as well, focusing on different elements, such as selling overseas, or how do workforce issues, those kind of elements as well. And we're picking up on what's important to businesses as well through our regional skills partnership and the work that's important to them, trying to meet some of their ambitions and initiatives. So it's a two-way process at this point. But this is one where we think it's really key to help the economic growth of the county by making sure that those base wages are of a sufficient value for everybody, the working in Powys. So it's key that it's in here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Diane. Just stay there a minute, because the one thing which I feel would lead to a real challenge to the plan is the pace of inflation and the cost of living pressures. Do you think the plan should have something in there to reflect that challenge or not?
Just a good question. I think the cost of living, everything we're trying to do under cost of living really is under poverty, under the whole of Objective 3. So I think we've tried to address what are the real pressures for cost of living, and how do we address them under the tackling poverty element under Objective 3. But if you think we've missed elements in there, I'd be happy to hear members' comments.
I just think the challenge in relation to economic development is massive, and we may see some failings there due to measures which are out of our control. So maybe we need to be mindful of that. Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got 3 questions on this objective. The first one is on page 53 on reference 19 about the staff turnover rate. Surely the 2 figures quoted for Q4 in 26, 27, 27, 28 are wrong. They're the cumulative annual figures, while the figures for 25, 26 are shown per quarter. So I would propose that 26, 27, 27, 28 ought to be 3.5, or you actually say it's cumulative by show them as Q2. The next one then is the new one around the numbers percentage of staff receiving their appraisals. It says reports in Q1 and 3, and then it's the targets are shown in Q2 and Q4. So that needs to be addressed and adjusted. And the other one is on page 59, which is a question around, so let me just flip to it. The last one, I think, no, it's not the last one. It's the mean gender pay gap. And I just wondered, does that include schools as well? Or is that just the central workforce?
Okay, I've got question 1 and 2, but I didn't understand question 3, so hopefully somebody's picked up on. No, let officers deal with that. That's probably my ignorance. Jane's coming in.
Just on the first 2, I think in terms of the staff turnover rate, yes, you're absolutely right. It looks like cumulative, so we need to be consistent in that. So we'll pick that up and address it. In terms of the appraisals take place in Q1 and 3, but of course we report them in the following quarter. So I think that what's in the measures and the reporting timescale corresponds with that.
No, it specifically says reports in Q1 and 3, Jane, in the document on page 53.
Reports in Q1 and 3, 90%.
If it says reports in Q2 and 4, that's fine.
Fair point. Yes, I can see what you mean now. They're undertaken, but of course they're not reported until the following. So yeah, okay. The last one I wasn't sure on either, so apologies. Perhaps Councillor Gareth, you could just remind us of the last one.
It's on page 59. It means it's the mean gender pay gap. A lower number is better, and I'm just asking, does that include schools as well as central staff? Because obviously schools is a very significantly female-dominated area, and I'm just wondering, is that included in that figure or not?
I think Gemma's jumping in to help you here, Jane.
Yeah,
Hiya, Gemma.
my understanding, I can confirm, but it's us as an employer, so because they are employees, it covers our whole workforce. So it would include schools.
Yeah, but not including those contracted in, such as social services, care workers.
No, it would be employees only.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, just zooming backwards and forwards with the papers. I think it's sort of becoming clear to me that the debate is around the methodology of the measures, and obviously we've all got different thoughts on how to measure things, especially in the absence of scores. And yeah, we could almost go through and look at each one of these, and we'll have about 20 different opinions, I guess. I just though wanted to look at under page 50, the heading of efficient and effective, well-supported staff, I think it is. And then when we look at some of the measures on page 51, there's talk about having completed a digital skills training course, and on page 52 about completing a climate adaptation training course. So my first question was, I just wondered, A, why we've only pulled out those two elements of training under this heading, and then B, people can do training, and like myself, I might pass an exam, but it doesn't mean I'm any good at the job. I think then as well, when I look down onto the next one, is just the percentage of staff who feel valued and highly valued. I think again that's a very difficult measure, because it depends upon which day you ask me on, and whether I've had a good day or a bad day. So yeah, as I say, I think just a general comment as well as those specific questions, Chair, is I'm just struggling with the measures to understand them.
Okay, I think Catherine's coming in here now.
Hello. Councillor Thomas. Yeah, so in terms of the measures, as Emma pointed out earlier, this is a draft plan, corporate and strategic equality plan currently. So measure definition documents will be available for each measure. And in those, it will be clear in terms of where the data source of where that measurement's coming from. So in the case of measure 23 that you just referred to, that is our staff survey that's undertaken annually. So that sort of information will be clear in the measure definition document itself.
Thank you, Catherine. Diane's got her hand up as well.
Just wanted to specifically say, Chair, the reason for actually including training on climate and nature specifically was around addressing a recommendation from an audit. So it was talking about how we actually improve the knowledge and understanding across the organisation. So that's why that one was specifically pulled out rather than any other measure in any other kind of training that we could deliver.
Has that helped in your understanding in any way, Peter?
If I could just come back with a couple of comments, if I may, Chair. I guess this is unfortunate around the value of the measure, because I understand what officers have just said there, and I understand the methodology as well, Catherine. But it's around the value of it, and I understand the point about picking up on climate because it's come out of an audit report. But you know, we've also had issues as well before around whistleblowing, for example, and that not being done correctly. So there's lots of other bits of training in there under that heading, I think, that that could help to measure that objective. But yeah, I don't know. It seems all very subjective to me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Peter. Chief Executive again.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important that yes, there are lots of other things that we can measure, plenty of things that we can measure across the whole organisation. But the point is the alignment. The measures need to correlate with the actions that we're undertaking and the objective. It's not this report isn't here to just measure anything. So that alignment is really, really important. And so the specific actions that are included under this objective or for the climate and the measures correlate. That's the point here. There's things we do on mandatory training, cybersecurity, equality, safeguarding, as examples, manual handling, so on and so forth. But we wouldn't put all of those individually in here in their own right because it doesn't correlate with the objective.
Okay, I think that covers it up. Thanks for those explanations there. Councillor Allen, followed by Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you. I think it's page 57, big page 57. I was just focusing on new ones. The number of residents with disabilities or neurodiverse challenges who gain employment is 2. Yeah, that's not cumulative. So that's 2 in quarter 3 and 2 in quarter 4. So is that 2 additional, or what level of employees are there within the council already, and what is the number outside the council in the private sector? It seems remarkably unambitious.
Okay, Dr. Richard and Diane. Dr. Richard first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to draw the committee's attention to the new education objectives, which feature under Objective 2 as well. So you'll see there enhanced measures around the number of our senior leaders undertaking our senior leadership programme, and then the number of our middle leaders, which means our teachers stepping up to middle leadership in our schools, undertaking a new development programme, which we're putting in place for those colleagues. So just a really important response, not just to the Eston report, but also what we know about ourselves as an authority in terms of the quality of our leadership, and very importantly, the sustainability of that leadership moving forward. So I just wanted to highlight that. Diolch.
Thanks, Dr. Richard. Diane.
Chair, I think just answering the question on the Connected to Work programme, this is a really hard one, and I know it does seem really low in terms of the numbers, but I think it's more about showing the commitment. We do help a much higher number of people with potentially neurodiverse challenges or disabilities, but they don't want to have them registered as part of the programme of supporting people. So what the Connected to Work programme tries to do is work with individuals on a one-to-one basis and trying to find the right kinds of employment that can work with whatever challenges they face, and that actually the receiving business, or in this case the council, can actually adapt and find a way to work with some of those challenges. So I think we are going to see small numbers. It is the first year, and you can see in the targets 26 and 27, 27, 28, we'll obviously wait to see if we've got funding to deliver those. But I think the numbers could increase as we work further and get more buy-in from different businesses, and also people get used to how we can work with them and the difference we can make. But I think we're always going to face the challenge of people actually putting their hands up and wanting it registered that they have a disability or a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. When listening to the media, there's it feels like there's a growing pool of youngsters which potentially fall into that category, and there could be a lot of hidden talent there for council to draw on. So it'd be good to monitor how it goes, but it does feel remarkably ambitious. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen and Diane. Councillor Jeremy.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to have an understanding of the cost of all this monitoring and who is carrying out the monitoring, because at the end of the day, we've got a value basis for the public. And if we're just employing people to monitor for the sake of monitoring, what are we aiming to do with the monitoring? Where are we looking to get to? And I'm just worried about the value for money. And what I will say on Alan's last point is people with difficulties, the sooner they come to terms with that and helping them come to terms and accepting it, like mental health, the quicker and the easier and more successful their life will become. Biggest problem is for people like that is we've got so much paperwork and crap that's stuck in everyone's way. That's what's stopping people with learning difficulties achieving in this day and age. But going back to the other one, I'm really concerned about the amount of monitoring, the cost of the monitoring, because some of this monitoring we're talking about, it doesn't make any sense why we're doing it.
I think you raised something which is a constant question for us as local members, is the resource surrounding the plan. I think we have to accept the need for the plan, but yeah, the resource which you speak about is an important question here.
I can come in terms of
Yeah.
the resource around the plan. Oh, Jane, sorry, am I stealing your thunder?
I was going to come in. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Chair.
It's just, I mean, reporting is very important, isn't it? Unless we understand our performance, we don't know what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and so on and so forth. So absolutely critical that we do report. However, as you rightly point out, that can be quite resource intensive. But what we are doing is looking to automate as much of that as possible. So Catherine and the team, once we've got a plan that's actually agreed, we will look to see how we can collect that data automatically, and that will then feed into the reporting so that it's done very much at the touch of a button, rather than somebody having to type everything actually into a document, which is what we used to have to do in the old days. So we have moved on quite away from that, and we will be automating it absolutely as much as possible and gathering data that we already hold to most of the extent, so that will make it a lot slicker and a lot more efficient.
Can I say most of this data you're collecting should be done through effective management? And the challenge management would have all this data anyway.
Absolutely.
I don't see why we're doing it separately. What it means, if management is failing and we're employing people to collect this information outside of management, we need to retrain management. And don't get me wrong, I used to do a lot of this in the late 80s, early 90s, going around multinational companies and stuff like that. All of this data should be collected through the management, and you shouldn't need to have employing extra people to carry this out.
It's even slicker than that, though. If you've got the processes automated, nobody has to pull it together. By recording it once, you can draw on the data for all of those purposes, including management being aware of it, and for the wider reporting at a corporate level and in the public domain.
But unless you challenge, you will never know whether it's succeeding.
Exactly.
So it's all down to the challenge in management, and that's where it all starts from.
I think there's an agreement there. There's an important comment in Gemma's put in the chat there in relation to Councillor Gareth's question previously. So just bring members' attention and officers' attention to that. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, just a quick comment from me, Chair, building upon Councillor Jeremy's comments there, because yeah, I too am sort of concerned about the amount of money and resource that's being spent on this measuring exercise. The one thing I've not seen in there yet is anything about complaints, because at the moment this begins to feel like this is an exercise to go and get some numbers to say we're doing a really, really good job. Whereas the measure of how well we're doing that job is really the volume of complaints and whistleblowing and subject access requests that we're receiving from the public. But I can't see any mention of the complaints measure in there yet. Thanks,
Clive's coming quickly back on that one, Peter. Trouble with your microphone again, Clive.
I'm ever so sorry, Chair. You would think that after this length of time I'd learn how to do it, but it's my age, I'm afraid. Sorry, members. Councillor Peter, thank you for the question. But once again, go back to the objective itself. The objective is about supporting good quality, sustainable employment, providing training opportunities, and pursuing real and living age accreditation. And therefore, the issue of complaints doesn't fall within that objective.
No, thanks for the clarity on that, Clive. I guess it was more of a general point, if we could just keep in our minds for when we may get there in a minute, to just double check whether complaints is in there or not. So I'm sure you will keep that on your radar. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much.
Okay, I think Emma's got something to add on this one as well.
Just to confirm that although it's not complaints is not specific to this individual objective, we do report complaints annually. So we still monitor that. We're required to do so. We have a separate report in terms of complaints. Then we also include in our end of year report self-assessment, because we've got to, with the complaints, how are we learning from those complaints? What are we taking on board? How is that then informing our improvement activities? So although it's not specific within this plan, there are requirements for us to monitor and report on complaints separately.
Okay. Have we explored option 2? Objective 2, not option 2, sorry. Yeah, if we have, we'll scroll down, and I believe, if my notes are correct, I think it's page 60. We're operating on my timescales, which is good. So yes, it is page 60. So once again, we'll go to the Chief Executive just to introduce quickly, and we'll open that up for questions.
Thank you, Chair. So I can confirm that this objective hasn't changed in terms of the overarching objective that was set out in previous reports. So we will work to tackle poverty and inequality to support the well-being of the people of Powys. In terms of priorities, there's a focus on being a child-centred county and protect the well-being of vulnerable children. So specifically around working with families and bringing individuals closer to home, and also ensuring children's rights to play, safe, and also education. There's a focus in here around post-16 education opportunities within Powys, so that young people have access to more choices without leaving the county. There's a priority in here around supporting communities, whether it be in core towns, which act as wider service hubs and localities to help them co-produce solutions to meet their needs where possible. There's also a priority around well-connected communities that support vulnerable people, provide activities, access to more affordable energy, food and transport, and also the utilisation of assets. There's a priority around tackling the cost of living challenge, poverty, so where people struggle to meet the cost of their basic needs, and the housing emergency. Also addressing fuel poverty and making sure that our council homes are warmer and greener, and also the need to reduce the carbon emissions and contribute to climate. And then the final priority is around redressing the balance of our approaches to sustainable landscape. So in essence, working towards nature recovery and ensuring that future generations have equitable access to healthy spaces that are valuable, and also river systems. A very heavy objective around poverty. Noting your points that you made earlier, Chair, it's around whether we're treating the cause or the symptoms. There are so many variables. So the main focus here is about what we can do as an organisation and how we can influence as best we can. But I think the point that you made earlier, Chair, was around it. You know, it's not solely within our gift to bring about the difference that's needed here. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Executive. I'm going to lead on the questions now on the opening page, and you mentioned we will support communities. Why is that in green? Is that likely to change? It's on,
I need to refer to one of the team there,
yeah.
Chair. I don't know if Catherine or Fliss.
It's on page 60. I just find it strange because that objective or that priority seems to be set in stone. I just wonder what could change in that, really.
Yeah, no, it's in green because it had moved from one objective to another one when the plan, it was up in another one, which it felt, so we've moved it, so it was just it was a sort of a mental note to check with others, so it's nothing untoward.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Thanks for that, Catherine. Councillor Allard.
Thank you, Chad. Apologies for being slightly negative before, but can I just reassure the Chief Exec, and perhaps you can pass the message on, and I'm much happy with this objective, especially the first half. I wasn't so keen on the second half of what you were saying, but the first half certainly. So thank you. You could pass it on to the leader and deputy. I'll come back in afterwards.
Okay, Councillor Bryn.
Yeah, okay. Oh, diolch yn iawn. Oes na gyfieithiad or not?
Dim, no.
No,
Sorry.
right, okay.
Wrong day, Bryn.
Right. Yeah, well. Okay, so on well, this doesn't need so much attention, perhaps. The first question is on big page 63 says strengthen the quality and impact of leadership, including political leadership at all levels. What does that mean? Just getting the politicians more involved, or getting the more office support so they can get more results? And how would you measure it anyway? So if it, is it an objective you can measure? etc. If that could be answered relatively quickly. But then if we move on to page 70, that's all right. Hope I got the right page. It's all about there's new targets in respect of Welsh percentages of Welsh learners, Welsh medium learners, etc. I was surprised to see the percentage of 3-year-olds receiving their education through the medium Welsh at 32%. That presumably is because it's not compulsory, and that's 32% of the people receiving any education at 3 years of age. Would I be right in that? Moving on to the next couple of lines, percentage of 5-year-olds receiving the education of the medium of Welsh, 28%. That seems to be a big jump from what I remember last time I was seeing figures. The average number of the percentage of pupils in Welsh medium education was lower than the percentage of Welsh speakers in Powys, so it was down around 17 or 18%. So 28% is quite impressive. But following that, I'm assuming that 90% is 90% not of all pupils, but of those who received their primary school education moving to year 7. Now that's fine. That's a good figure to know. But can we have another line saying percentage of students or percentage of GCSEs sat through the medium of Welsh? Because I think that's where there's a massive decline in equality of opportunity for kids to get Welsh medium education. It's the secondary schools hitherto have been letting us down really badly. There may be 1 or 2 exceptions in the pipeline to improve matters on that. But theoretically, if 28% of our pupils in year 7 are accessing Welsh medium education at high school, that can be demonstrated to be true or false by measuring is it 28% of all GCSEs sat at year 11 sat through the medium of Welsh, and that's the figure we need to have in there to see what level of equality or equity exists in our education system. Diolch.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Brendale. A lot in there. One question about political leadership, but I'm going to come to Marianne in the first instance, as I'm guessed that she's going to speak in relation to the Welsh language.
Diolch yn fawr, pnawn da. Diolch, Cynghorydd Bryn. Just in terms of the measures in this document, they reflect the measures in our WESP. So they are aligned, so they're exactly the same ones. So the first one around 3-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, and then the transition from Welsh medium primary year 6 into Welsh medium primary year 7. So we are tracking the progress. And just to let you know as well, the measures were set back in 2022 when the WESP was first was approved. And then we've set the baseline from 2022, and we're increasing by 2% every year until we reach our targets. In terms of, you mentioned the 5-year-olds, the target last year, we did achieve the 26% last year, but we know we may not achieve it the 28% this year, but we're keeping a close eye on that. In terms of the GCSE aspect, outcome 4 of the WESP is around that area. It's around Key Stage 4. We don't have specific targets for outcome 4, but Welsh Government are okay with that. What we have said is that we'll review the position 5 years into the WESP, so in 2027. And the reason we did that was because we were reflecting the changes in Welsh medium education in secondary as we transition from dual streams into Welsh medium. So that's where we are, and that's a conversation we've had with Welsh Government, and they accept that as well. So.
Is it right? Can I supplementary go? Well, could we at least measure it, and give us the information of the percentage of GCSEs? It's just a matter of surveying the schools, getting that information out there, because that is key to finding out if the schools are actually spending their money that Powys give them for that purpose to the right in the right way. So
We can.
yeah.
What I'll say is we don't have targets in this area to recognise how the differences across the whole piece in Powys. But we do a yearly report to Welsh Government on the WESP, which is available to the Welsh Medium Forum and available to anybody. In that we track the numbers of GCSEs and qualifications, etc., from year to year. So that is available, but we don't have a target against it currently.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't not so worried about the target. It's the information that I want.
The information's
there.
And that's available. Okay.
If I could step in here, and maybe I get it wrong, but this is where I think Scrutiny can add value to this corporate plan. There's nothing now stopping us dragging the item which you speak about out of this document and doing some scrutiny in our own learning and skills.
Absolutely.
And I think that would benefit the corporate plan, and then we can do so. That goes for anything, and of course I picked up on it now because education is that's my thing really. So that's how we should do that, and then that can affect the plan going forward, can't it?
Yeah.
Yep, good idea. I've got Dr. Richard's got his hand up, and then I'm going to come to Lucy.
Thanks so much, Chair. Just wanted to pick up on the comment really around the leadership objective. So you'll note that leadership objective is the wording of our ESTIN recommendation. So it's about us being absolutely explicit that it is leaders at all levels, leaders within the service, leaders in our schools, our third sector organisation leaders, and political leadership, the leadership of all of our elected members in their respective roles. By using the wording of the ESTIN objective, what we want to demonstrate is that whole council accountability and collective responsibility for education improvement. So that's why that objective relates to leadership at all levels and across the system, because it's not the responsibility of one single group of leaders to drive educational improvement. Councillor Bryn's question about how do we measure that, and there is a challenge in measuring that. So how we will measure that is quite simply on the impact that leadership makes on learner outcomes and the standards in our schools. So what you'll see in the education performance measures are very clear and strong indicators that relate to the attainment and the achievement of our learners, because that's the end result of that strong and secure leadership that objective is focused on. Diolch.
Councillor Bryn, I'm going to give you an opportunity there. Are you content with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Diolch.
Good. Lucy, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's a few items I'd like to raise. One, I suspect the CAP 9 score covers this to some extent, but it would be nice to see something specifically about the breadth of curriculum that we're offering, because I think that does have an impact on the welfare of students. So I'd value a comment on that. I also wondered whether we should have something in there about school exclusions and how we're managing that. And also whether there's any way that we can pick up on the mental health of our students and report on that and how that might be changing over time.
Is well-being better than the terminology mental health? Would well-being cover that? No. Okay, let's get an answer on that. Dr. Richard.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you very much, Councillor Lucy. I think the point you make about broadening the curriculum offer is absolutely right. We know that we need to do that in our schools. The CAP 9 indicator does include those vocational subjects and broader subjects as well. But I'll note the point that you make about making that more explicit, so that we are signalling that we value the full breadth of qualifications on offer to young people. So I think that's a fair point. In our education service plan, which of course has got a clear link to the corporate strategic plan, we do have measures around, they're not measures around mental health, they are measures around well-being and exclusion, but they aren't carried through into the corporate and strategic quality plan. But under objectives relating to well-being, we do have those very clear measures in our service IBP.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. Councillor Gareth.
Just on page 66 on the there's 7 targets there around performance in year 11 and 13 and 12, etc. Can I ask if the results are received in Q2, why are they not only reported in Q4? That's the first question. The second one then is on page 68, where it says that all schools are going to be able to set a balanced budget in 25-26. Well, and then there's no target identified for 26, 27, 27, 28. Can I ask what's the definition of an in-year balanced budget? Does that include the carry forward underspends or overspends? And the last one is, I am very disappointed after I attended a chairs and deputy chairs meeting last night, which had an input from the school meal service, where we are told that the uptake of the universal free school meals is only at 77% in the primary sector. So that means there's, on average, each child is not taking up a meal per week. I worked it out roughly last night. That means there's 300,000 meals that should be provided to our children free. That's not being delivered. And I would expect that there should have been a target in that area within this document, especially in light of how the questions that were asked last night were answered.
Okay, I'm just scrolling through the document there. Anwen.
Diolch o galon,
Yeah.
pnawn da bawb, a diolch galon, thank you Councillor Jones for your questions. If I start on your question around the date of the data being reported, so you are correct that of course the data is available in August, but we don't report it until the Q4 because it isn't verified by Welsh Government, and the comparative data with other similar schools and averages is not available until January, so it's Q4. So we absolutely start the use of the data immediately when they're available in August, but we can't report it. It's not in the public domain until January.
So is that one that learning in schools could have under confidential item?
You could have non-verified data as it comes in. So you'll have received the paper that's going to scrutiny next Monday. And that's why it's taken so long, because it's only January when we get the family data, which is the most important to see how we do compared to similar schools. So yeah, lovely. So, but definitely in a closed session, we could, but it's not available in the public domain until January. So the second question you had around the in-year balanced budget, the target is related to actually just in-year balanced budget, so it doesn't include either cumulative surpluses or cumulative deficits. It's our management over time. Now, as we move in the future, we may look at cumulative surpluses, but at the moment, our biggest priority is to make sure that our schools are delivering in-year balance or surplus budgets. And then number 3.
Sorry, I can tell you that target's not going to be met.
I know, yeah.
I can set a budget as good as anybody else, and I'm struggling big time.
Yes, we accept that, but I have to be aspirational and to meet the demands. And then the FSM uptake, following the conversations we did have last night, I think that's a very good point that we'll work with the catering department to consider adding the FSM element of uptake for free school meals into that.
So
and the universal provision.
Yeah. So could that be added into this report before it goes to cabinet?
I'd have to check. I'm not too late, but I think it would be a very good area for us to consider.
Thank you.
Diolch.
I'm still with you. Okay. Thank you there. Margaret, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can indeed.
It's okay. My mic is on. Yeah, it's really within the document, strengthen the focus on education within the council's strategic plan. And in the light of this, since the Eston report on education, what additional data is thought to be required to show positive developments which will impact and support the improvement in educational standards in our schools. And I'm talking of educational standards of all ages, rather than a particular focus on exams at the end of the secondary phase, because you have to get it right for children as soon as they walk through the door, and you have to be monitoring. That's the first bit. And the other one is really the fact that so much, and it can't be in this report possibly, but where is it going to appear? Because in education, you have to work to be effective for children with other areas of the council, and not solely education. You have to work alongside them and with them and develop things for the benefit of the child. And I don't see anything that gives me any statistics for that.
Thank you, Margaret. I see Anwen nodding her head, so she may be agreeing with a lot of what you said, Anwen.
Sorry, Chair. I think the Director of Education wants to come in first, and then I'll come in.
Oh, apologies.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Go on, Dr. Richard.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yes, thank you very much, Margaret, for the comments there. I'll respond, Anwen, and please come in then, Anwen, with your point, all right? I think the point you make about data is absolutely right. I just want to add to that, really, because I think it's not just about the data we've got. We've actually got a lot of data, but the real challenge is how we are using that data. What we've identified as a service is that we're not analysing that data to the required depth, and we're not evaluating that data. So then we're unable to identify very precise areas for improvement. So we do have a very rich baseline of data, particularly on secondary education. But our focus is about how we use that data to plan for improvement and work with our schools to make sure that data is understood and how it needs to be the tool for improvement, identification of improvement in their school development plan. So I just wanted to make that broader point about we've got data, but it's really about how we are intending on using it. I'll also pick up the point around partnerships. You know, you're absolutely right in the point that you make, that to be able to meet the needs of children and young people in Powys, we have to work in partnership with a wide range of partners. In our integrated business plan, which sits underneath the corporate and strategic equality plan, which has the golden thread running through it, as the chief executive said, what you would see in that are all of the actions that have joint accountability to meet the needs of our pupils. So that would be accountability with Powys Teaching Health Board, with schools themselves, with wider partners. So we do have that, but that's a level of detail that sits underneath this plan. Anwen, did you want to come in?
Diolch yn galon. Is that okay, Chair?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Margaret, thank you for your question. And absolutely, we've toyed with the question around how do we demonstrate progress at primary phase. The biggest issue we have now is not verified data, because every school can do things differently. But in our service integrated business plan, the IBP, we absolutely do have internal progress levels from their foundation learning baseline, and also their progress in their spelling ages, reading ages, and their different elements of other elements of literacy and numeracy. So in our service plan, there are targets there, but we can't report on them publicly because they're not verified in the public domain.
Okay. Oh, content, Margaret. Thank you. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, can I just add something?
Oh, come on, Margaret. Yeah, come on back in.
From the point of view of in the past, on occasions, funding is the issue, but also the people to do it. There have been things for parents, because if you're talking about improving standards for younger children, very often working with parents in a structured way, and there is evidence of that in the past, that I don't know, is that something that is going to be thought through at all?
Okay, just quickly, Dr. Richard.
Yeah, I can come back in. Yes, it is being thought through at the moment. So to give you a particular example, as part of our IBP, there's a very clear focus on attendance across all of our schools. And one of our actions around that is about what does parental and carer engagement look like, to make sure that parents and carers are working with us and fulfilling their responsibilities for their children to attend school. Another brief example would be the work that the ALN team are currently undertaking, where they are developing a series of individual lived experience case studies from parents of children with additional learning needs, so that real-time, real-life lived experience can inform our strategic direction. So parents, carers, a key group of stakeholders that we need to learn from.
Thank you both, and thank you, Margaret, for raising those questions. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, sorry, just on another sort of separate point, just something I was musing on actually. I know we need to have sort of one person responsible, so fully understand why there is just one lead member across these categories. But I was just musing on this objective, which is obviously about poverty, and I don't see anywhere in any mention of the very important role of our anti-poverty member champion in this, which I really do think we should recognise and acknowledge that role and stress the importance of it. So I guess if it can't go in under, say, a lead member anywhere, could at least it be considered that it gets mentioned in the supporting information, where on, I think it's page 92, and I know I'm jumping ahead, there is a heading called Tackling Poverty. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, no, I think it's a relevant point there. Something we should consider as a recommendation. Yep. Judging on your silence, everybody seems to accept that. Councillor Allard.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased that all this education data has now been put into this plan. Because Scrutiny did push for this last time we met, and because there was absolutely no education data, hardly any educational data in it previously, and it is one of the key drivers to help us achieve the objective, this third objective here, and improve everything within Powys. But what I am concerned, there's a key indicator that is not included here, and it's a key indicator that sort of indicates the overall quality of education within Powys, and that is a number of pupils that access education outside Powys. If we had a really good education system in Powys, there wouldn't be any people crossing the border to access education. It doesn't matter at what stage, primary, secondary, or post-16. And the data here doesn't include mention cross-border, and that also skews a lot of the data because we haven't got access to those Powys residents that live in Powys but have their education in England. So there's a huge percentage of data that's missing from this, and there's nothing here that reflects that. What can be done to deliver? Because I don't want to see anybody cross a border. I want to see brilliant education within Powys, and people will want to stay within Powys to receive their education. And if we have a target around cross-border issues, it also impacts what Councillor Bryn was on about the Welsh education, because following the decisions yesterday, there's a Welsh family going to access their education in England, which is problematic. But I'm not sure who would want to deal with that, really? I can see one of the only portfolio holders here is Councillor Roberts, so perhaps, well, yeah.
Who would to pick up? Dr. Richard.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a tricky measure to have as a whole measure for all young people in the authority, but what we do have are measures around in the Education Integrated Business Plan. We will have measures around the number of learners that will leave county to access post-16 education. So I think there's that level of detail in the Education IBP. There's also the point around the number of learners that come into county as well. We know we've got schools that attract learners in from other counties. So, I think it's fair challenge to the plan and a point to consider.
I think it's important at all key stages, Dr. Richard. And you want a high indicator of people coming into Powys wanting that education, and a low number for those flowing out. Even though it's financially advantageous for Powys for pupils to leave the county and have their education outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you. Where do we score Estyn in its report? I wouldn't, they seem to challenge. Where is their helpfulness? Where is their guidance and all the rest of it? Nothing seems to be in this report where we have a challenge back to them. It's like as if God has walked through the door and we've all got to eat off the platter. I'm very sorry, but that's not really in the real world what should happen. So why isn't there a challenge here about Estyn? Why aren't we scoring the advice we get on how it reflects on the way forward? And then secondly, we can build all the schools we want, we can have all the education we want, but if we don't sort out post-16, there'll be no young people left to procreate, to produce any children, and we'll need one school in the north and one school in the south because there's going to be no one left. Post-16 is this council's biggest challenge. I've been a councillor, this is my second term, and we're still in the same state with post-16 education. Our youngsters are leaving, they're not coming back. We're still trying to develop a business from the middle out, which is absolutely impossible. We've got agendas in some cases, like, I won't go into that, it's about the agenda rather than the outcome. And we need to start understanding we're letting our young learners down because education standards, in my opinion, have dropped, not gone up in the last 20 years. So why are they going down? Why are we still doing the same things? Why aren't we learning lessons of what we did, which has brought about the failure of education? So that would be my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. A couple of points in there, but I think the post-16 and transformation, where's the relevance to that, to the document? Anybody able to help us with that? Dr. Richard.
Thanks so much. First of all, I will just respond to the points raised about the inspectorate because, because they've been raised. I think it's very difficult to challenge the inspectorate when the inspectorate are right. The inspectorate have come into our local authority after a very thorough inspection process, have identified that our standards are not where they need to be, and as we acknowledge, because our standards are not where they need to be, we're letting our learners down. So I don't see how we can challenge an inspectorate that has made observations that we agree with, because the inspectorate are right in their appraisal. I think how we challenge is we challenge by improving. And that's how we challenge the inspectorate. We show the inspectorate that we can improve and that we can deliver and we can do the best for our learners in Powys. And that's exactly the sort of challenge that the inspectorate want to see from us. So I did just want to comment on that, because I do think that's an important point to make. The point made about learning lessons, absolutely. and we have learnt lessons, and the way we are approaching education planning now is different to how we have approached it in the past. We've learned from the observations of the inspectorate, but we're not solely relying on them. We're also learning from far more deeper evaluation of our own service and our schools. And we're also learning a lot from the partner work that we're doing with other local authorities. That doesn't mean that we're just transplanting in practice from other local authorities. We are visiting partners in authorities with proven track records in areas where we know we need to develop. So we're fundamentally shifting the way that we are planning for improvement. We're planning properly, and we're planning collaboratively with very clear actions and accountability for it. So I think there is a step change in how we are working as a whole council, which speaks back to that point around the objective about leadership at all levels. In terms of post-16, post-16 features strongly in our education IBP. So we have specific measures relating to post-16 transformation in the education IBP, but they aren't pulled through here to the corporate and strategic equality plan. But there is an individual strategic action which responds directly to the Estyn recommendation in the service plan. Diolch.
Thank you.
Can I come back?
Yes, of course you can, Jeremy.
Thank you. If Estyn had been right on every occasion, why aren't they running the country? Because I've never come across any organisation that's right on everything. I won't say no more on that. Post-16 education is failing. Our children are leaving, and it's not even part of this document. That isn't just a failing, that's catastrophic. Post-16 education is and should be our #1 priority, and how we're going to support youngsters if they don't wish to leave to do university degrees in them, and looking at other usage for the buildings, i.e. putting day centres with them and stuff to reduce the costs. There's lots of different things, but we seem to have one agenda and one agenda only, and it seems to at the back front of everything else. Nothing else seems to matter, and our children are being failed, I'm very sorry to say. And if you could just tell me on one occasion, on 2 things that we've learned from the last 20 years going forward, that we're going to implement because we realize it was bad practice to change, I would love to hear them as well. Thank you.
Dr. Richards, you still got your hand up. I'll let you wade through that.
Thank you. 2 points there. First one around post-16 not featuring in the document. It does feature in the document on page 67. So there are 3 measures that specifically relate to the outcomes for learners at post-16. So there are 3 measures to hold us account in this document to learner outcomes at post-16. The second question really about what have we learnt, I think I would just refer back to the response that I gave to an earlier question around the fact that we have gathered a lot of data, but we haven't evaluated that data. I think that's a fundamental piece of learning that we are doing and will continue to do, that it's all well and good having a lot of data in front of you, but it's about what you do with it and how you use it to plan for improvement. The second thing, and it relates to the point about data, is that I certainly think as an authority that we've got work to do to know our schools better. And there's a point there around how we interact with our schools, how we bring challenge to our schools and support to our schools. And I think historically, we haven't had that balance of challenge and support right. So there's a culture piece of work to do, so that as an authority, we do support, but we also bring the required challenge needed to drive up standards in our schools. So I'd say they were the 2 key, amongst other pieces of learning that as a service we are, I think we'd recognise. Diolch.
Thank you very much. Councillor Allen again.
Just a very quick point. A lot of this data, we got targets for Powys, it'd be great to have a bit of benchmarking within these boxes, almost, what is top quartile within Wales. We should be aiming at for that. For example, page 67, percentage of post 16 getting 3 A stars to E grades. Target is 79%. It'd be good to have a brackets underneath what the Wales average is, or Wales top quartile is, and that goes for a lot of the data throughout this plan, really, about that benchmarking with Wales, England, or whoever, so we can have some ambition within the programme. Thank you.
Okay, Anwen.
Just very quickly, that will, as Catherine did specify before, will be part of the measure definition document, where we will be stating where we are against families, against Wales. But just for clarity, the percentages there for Q4, this is where we were as the top local authority in Wales. Because that's where we should be amongst the top local authorities in Wales. And then, as you can see, we've incrementally improved them as we go along, but we have set our ambitions high.
Yeah, and it's, the target might be right, but we just need that assurance.
Yeah, it'll be part of the measure definition, but I accept that.
Okay, another document to troll through. Diolch, Anwen.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that brings objective. Well, no, Adrian, Councillor Adrian.
Just one quick one, please, Chair. On page 80, we will, in green, Jake Berryman, he's going to help small horticulture, rural enterprises, help businesses grow and communities grow, which is great. Isn't it possible to have the targets on that? Because, we could simply do that to see that we are getting more rural enterprises and businesses are growing and communities are thriving.
I think this is a recurring theme. How do we measure all these objectives, isn't it? So,
okay.
Yeah,
there's no targets there underneath, and I mean, you could see growth in rural enterprises surely over each quarter.
Catherine's coming in, Adrian.
Thank you.
Yeah, afternoon. So they are actions, Councillor Adrian, and so any measures would be on the next page down. So they are actions.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay, thank you. Right. As I started to say, I think that brings objective 3 to an end. The document continues. I'm not sure. Do you want to take it any further? It's been quite an extensive scrutiny session, but obviously there's an awful lot of more detail to follow as well. Is there any burning questions on the rest of the detail? There's some good information there, and it was said in the pre-meeting, it's almost as if this is where the document starts and the proof is in the pudding, really. But do you want to take the document any further, or do you think scrutinising the 3 objectives is fulfilling the role which we've been asked to do? I'm going to say yes then. So I'm going to bring this agenda item to an end. I'm going to thank everybody who's contributed, members and officers. I'm going to say I thought the officers have been very, very good today. They've been quick off the mark and have been answering our questions very quickly. So thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate that, and some good questions from us. I think it's disappointing. I think it's worth mentioning it's disappointing there isn't many cabinet members in here, and many of them cabinet members hold the lines, and there's no comment at all. So it's obviously been very officer led, and I've thanked them for their efforts today. But I think the document belongs to cabinet, and I would have liked to have heard some more comments. That takes us on to the next agenda item, which is recommendations. Officers, you're quite welcome to stay, but members, we have to formulate some recommendations for the cabinet to consider from our scrutiny today now. So we've moved on to that. I think it's item 5 on your agenda, is it? So recommendations, please. There's the first recommendation, which Gareth mentioned early on in today's meeting, was a diagram of the golden thread. And the chief executive agreed that may be a really good idea to include for a better understanding of the document. Would that form our first recommendation? Yeah. Don't go silent on me now, folks. Yeah, Councillor Gareth.
I would have thought, Chair, the first recommendations is that they make the corrections to all the points that we picked up in the paper. Now, for example, the fact that there's a £60 million gap when it's actually 39.1 million. There's other factors that we picked up where there's some corrections needed in the data and in the tables. I'd be horrified if this paper went to Cabinet in its current format.
Okay. Yeah. No. Everybody in agreement with that. I think there was an acceptance that the data needed to be updated. Yeah. So yeah, there's one recommendation. A recommendation of a diagram of the golden thread.
Yeah.
We seem to be responding to KPIs, how the measures are measured. Do we need to put something in surrounding that? We're not sure how. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, the last question I had around the benchmarking.
Yeah.
It's a pain having two documents open and trying to navigate between two. Some simple method of putting additional benchmarking into this without overcomplicating it. I'm sure officers have got far better ideas than I have around that. So just to, when you have an easy, so you want almost an easy read version to some degree, where it's really self-explanatory and it shows where Powys is in its performance against other authorities in the UK. It's not easy to do, but I think it's important because it should be a public-facing document. Thank you.
Okay, I've got no problem with that. Yeah. Does that benchmarking need to be surrounding each line or objective, or how are we going to clarify that?
Yeah, there's a risk of making it 10 times as long, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chair, I just wanted to say in relation to that it's already been mentioned about the amount of time that monitoring takes. So I think we need to be really careful. Probably if we do want to do something like this, to just identify what will be most useful to do in terms of national or regional benchmarking.
Yeah, we can. I think that's a good way of putting it, Councillor Liz. I think we can put that caveat in with Alad's remarks. It's not always our role to find a solution.
Yeah, surely, Chair, there should be general national, regional benchmarking clubs, and couldn't the officers link them back to the key KPIs that we got here?
Yeah, let's just put it as a recommendation. Yeah, Kath.
Sorry, Chair, I'm trying to get the video on. Just to mention that there's nothing about the anti-poverty champion, if you want a recommendation.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good point.
And then there was cross-border measures, and for learning and skills to be looking at GCSE Welsh medium, possibly as a working group.
The point in relation to learning and skills in Welsh is equality there. That provision needs to be of equality. Yeah, no, thanks for those reminders. Yeah, that's good.
I'm very keen on the cross-border stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, those are good. Not prompting comment, but Aled, you were expressing the relevance of the objectives. You felt that objective 3 make a real difference. Do we need to make something surrounding it?
We've made commenters
before
about the first two being inward looking and the third one being outward looking, but it's a really positive that they've introduced the educational aspects within this, so they've listened and responded to scrutiny from the last time, and maybe we should recognize that as well.
It's not just about recommendations; it's about observations as well. That's a good point. Clive, you're jumping in.
Thank you, Chair. I was just making some notes as go through the meeting, and there was an issue which Councillor Pete raised about SARS. So that you might want to make that a recommendation. And alternatively, there was one about free school meals as well. So I thought I'd just mention that for you, Chair.
Hey, thanks for that help, Clive. Thank you. Yeah, good points. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Clive just beat me to the one on SARS, so thank you, Clive. The only other one I don't know whether we could ask to be considered is whether, as a measure, complaints handling should be included in there somewhere or considered to be included.
What's members' feelings on that? In agreement with that? Simple nod will help.
Which objective would it fall under? The second one about workforce.
Yeah, sorry, Alid. Yeah, it was like what I was saying in the meeting to Clive. Sorry, sometimes the musing bits come to me, and I'm not exactly certain where it is. But I guess as an overall thing for me is that the biggest measure of are we doing our job correctly and rightly is based upon what complaints are we getting. So it's almost like it covers the whole lot, but I know that doesn't help. So I guess that was why I was trying to ask it along the lines of, could it be considered that, complaints handling, or sorry, complaints received is included somewhere as a measure of performance? Because the complaint could be about any aspect of our service, really.
Okay, we'll try and reflect that.
Yeah. Sorry, Grimford, while I was going, there was one other one I had on my mind. Which I sort of got what Emma said about people, but it was just whether or not we are going to get a firmed up definition of what people is, because if you've got 65 people saying the libraries are wonderful, then obviously 65 people out of 100 is a much better score than 65 out of 133,000.
Okay, the chief executive was very clear that the leader and the cabinet did express to use the terminology people. So maybe ask for some clarification
Yeah, what does
surrounding
that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Councillor Gareth?
Yeah, it was very disappointing about the number of cabinet members who were present today, and whether we should have some sort of recommendation that would be nice for future meetings that there's more presence. Not that the ones that were present added much.
We could add that as a measure of performance, Councillor Gareth. Yeah.
I'm happy to put that because they are the line holders at the end of the day and responsible for all the different measures and things. But
And the chief executive is very clear that the leader and deputy leader had led on this as well.
Yeah, this is the council's performance equality paper. This should be okay. Officers would develop it, but it should be signed off and owned by the cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to put that in. Anything else? I think it's worth saying, I think we've given it some good scrutiny today because, we were very open in our pre-meeting. We have real difficulty with the document because, but I think that the chief executive helped us a great deal today in her introductions. But I think we've given it some good scrutiny, but it's such a document to scrutinize.
And Chair, you can still use the computer system to do what's the name of the? It's not
Copilot. Copilot.
No. What's starts with S? It's, it doesn't help much, does it? Apologies. Catherine, can you help me?
S.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. I don't know what we're going on about. Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, would you mean SharePoint? It's not the first time. I must admit. But
are you referring
Sway? Sorry, Sway. It'll still be Sway will still be used to deliver or produce the data, will it?
Oh, Power BI, you mean?
Power BI, yes, Sway, yeah.
Yes, we will be using that to monitor. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Liz.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, I know there's been, as you've said, there's been a lot of good scrutiny in terms of the measurements and, what we measure and what we need to improve in terms of measurement. But I just wanted to say that having looked at the minutes of the meeting to begin with, and then looked at what's been produced in the equality plan. I do think that it should be acknowledged that there has been some significant progress in terms of the new objectives that have been included in there based on what this group asked for in the previous meeting.
I totally agree with you, Liz. I did a similar exercise as well. The only thing I was disappointed with, I read our recommendations as well, and some of them didn't tie up, and we hadn't had some responses to them recommendations as yet. So yeah, but
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that. Peter, you've still got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Yeah, I was just musing on one more thing actually. It was just more in terms of process. Could we ask what the process will be to make sure what actual figures go in here are cross-referenced to other reports? So I'm thinking I've recently seen an annual information governance report, which includes things like SARS and in FOIs, for example. So yeah, just to make sure that when it comes to publishing this, the data is consistent across all the reports.
Yeah, no, it's a good point to make. And the conclusion of the document, there is a lot of links, etc., etc., etc. there.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can scrutinize that and go through that detail. But yeah, I think you make a fair point there that when we get to those links and we go to different documents, that there has to be consistency, and we picked up one or two inconsistencies today. So yeah, I think it's fair to make that point. Good. I'm going to suggest we leave it there then. I don't know, Alid, you're the only other chair present today. I don't know if Alid, if you'd like to come in a meeting with me and Kath when we put these recommendations and observations together for Cabinet. It'd be useful to help us there if you would, or
happy to do so. I think Lucy's a vice chair as well. But
okay, yeah, I'm not sure. Lucy, have you been in for much of the meeting or not? I wasn't sure when you came in.
Yes, I've been in most of the meeting.
All right. So yeah. So should we include Lucy, myself, and Alid in that then? Yeah. Councillor Gareth.
And Gareth.
And I could
Gareth's the
represent
vice chair as
Delvin,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I must admit, the strength in numbers on this occasion would help me a great deal. Okay. I'm not sure. There's nothing else on the agenda, I don't think, but I would suggest that we've coped with this document better than we have done in the past, but let's hope it becomes an acceptable conclusion. Thanks for everybody's attendance. We can have a moment of reflection after the meeting if you so wish. It's up to you. Do you want a quick chat after? Yeah, there's a nod in the head there, so we'll do that. Just for the scrutiny committee, if that's okay. So thank everybody who's still listening in, and also Cabinet and officers. Thank you very much, and we'll have a quick period of reflection after.